today, Dallas Mavericks fans, MFFLs everywhere? Your Dallas Mavericks are moving on to the Western Conference Finals. It'll be against the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves. That game will be going on today. But the Dallas Mavericks took down the Oklahoma City Thunder, the number one seed in the entire Western Conference. Oklahoma City Thunder with the final score of Dallas 117, the Oklahoma City Thunder 116. The Dallas Mavericks got off to a bit of a slow start. And to me, I'm going to say, when you're talking about a young team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're going to come out in the first quarter. You know they're going to try to punch you in the mouth. They're on the road. And all they've heard all year, this is a young team. They have so much talent. The future is bright for them. They have so many things they can get done. But to be in a position where they're, again, finding yourself from being a 10 seed last season to a number one seed this year, obviously they're becoming the favorites. And they come into this series, you saw the national pundits all over the place, the media experts. Everyone was picking the Oklahoma City Thunder. So a team like that, they're going to come out here, show a little bit of pride. I'll give them credit for that. But the Dallas Mavericks just had to keep themselves engaged, had to keep themselves involved, because one thing you're going to see early on in this game, obviously, going into the game of last night, we're talking about Tony Brothers. We know exactly the Dallas Mavericks, that history. He's usually that guy. He's not going to let teams play as physical as they like to, especially the Mavericks. That's been our calling card, especially after the acquisitions, the big trade acquisitions of PJ Washington, of Daniel Gafford. The number one thing have been our calling card, especially for the Dallas Mavericks, is defensive pressure, defensive intensity, throwing in Derrick Jones Jr. in that mix as well. But Tony Brothers, you have these guys. Now you're trying to figure out how exactly are we going to be able to be physical. And again, the Dallas Mavericks find themselves in a bit of a hole early, dealing with a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they stayed engaged. PJ Washington in early foul trouble. That, to me, knocked off so much of the momentum from this game, and I'm kind of nervous a little bit. I'm going to keep it completely real with you guys. I was a little bit nervous because when you're seeing PJ Washington come off the court, 2 early fouls, one thing you're going to now say, how much defensive pressure can we put on the perimeter? Because although we've seen Kyrie Irving, we've seen Luka Doncic be very engaged defensively, they're still not the level of PJ Washington, the defender that PJ Washington is, and Derrick Jones Jr. And what that's going to allow for Derrick Jones Jr. is now you have a little bit more responsibility. That's going to put a little bit more pressure on a Daniel Gafford and a Derek Lively down low for rim protection. So one thing you're going to have to see is the Dallas Mavericks. Are they going to be able to stay intense, stay physical? Because one thing you're going to have to worry about on the other end is putting the ball in the bucket. You're going to have a guy like Lou Dort, who I'm sure he's made not a lot of fans around Dallas Mavericks, the fan base, because this is talking about a guy, he likes to play very physical, and I won't knock that at all, because those are the kind of players I like. But at the same time, there's a fine line between dirty, clean, and just trying to get in guys' heads. And to me, that's kind of what took over a little bit when you're talking about a Lou Dort. But it was still a great overall series. But the Dallas Mavericks, like I said, with having PJ Washington in early foul trouble, who's going to step up? Who's going to, I guess you want to say, show themselves to be a key weapon in this game, because you're going to have to close it out. I believe Kyrie Irving speaks about it in post-game. Coming off this victory, he says, when you cut out to that bit of a slow start, I believe at one point the Dallas Mavericks found themselves in about a 16 to 17 point hole. And prior, I'm going to say also going into halftime, dealing with these issues, and now you're getting PJ Washington back in the game. He ends up with a third foul in the second quarter, so now he's right back off the floor. And now you need a Luka Doncic, you need a Kyrie Irving, you need a Derrick Jones Jr., you need some of these guys off the bench, a Jaden Hardy, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Again, it's just great young youth development that we've got to see in this series, especially in the last few games of this series. Just some of these young guys being able to get an opportunity to show that they can be key contributors going forward. The Dallas Mavericks find themselves, I believe, with a 42 to 40 lead, 42 to 41, something like that. The first lead essentially for the Dallas Mavericks in this game. And going after that, the number one issue was we allow, I believe, with a 24 to 6 run, 22 to 6 run, something like that to end the second half, or the first half, excuse me. And now you're finding the Dallas Mavericks being back by a whole bunch at halftime. And the number one issue now, because Kyrie Irving, we're talking about a guy, I believe he had, maybe 4 points at halftime, something similar to that. And then you're coming 4 or 5 points. And then you're coming in now asking yourself, this is not another situation where you're going to say, is it going to just fall? I guess you want to say, we're going to come up just a little bit short. You're looking at asking, Kyrie Irving, we need you to step up. We need you to engage yourself. We need you to get more involved. Obviously, the veteran presence that he is, we're talking about being the elder statesman essentially on this team, a guy that he's been in the trenches. We've seen Kyrie Irving in these deep playoff series. We've seen him in an NBA Finals. We've seen him knock down big shots. But you're going to have to ask, who is going to come along for the ride with the Luka Doncic? I believe Luka Doncic pretty much had, 16 points, I believe, at halftime, somewhere around that number. We're looking at a Luka Doncic and just saying, Obviously, we're going to need him to be that number one. He's dealt with so many I'm going to say nagging injuries, whether it's from the knee injuries to his back. This is just some things you're going to have to, I guess you want to say, keep an eye on going to that second half of the game last night. So now you're just looking for who's going to be able to join in on that ride. And I'm going to give Kyrie Irving a lot of credit right now, because going into that second half, I believe he put up 18 shots in the second half. This is a guy who had no issue with showing that he is a guy that can stay aggressive, especially when it comes to these situations that we're now called, I guess I like to call winning time. And I say winning time in the sense of there comes usually, especially we're talking about the NBA, but especially in basketball in general, there are the ebbs and flows of games. You're talking momentum, losing momentum, especially a young team like Oklahoma City. They have nothing to do but fight for their lives now, because again, you find yourself in a potential go home situation if you lose to the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving came out there, took 18 shots in the second half, ends up with 22 points, and it was going to be just a threat. A couple nice shots, and again, I like to say shooter's touch, obviously. A big three-point shot later on in the game that pretty much helped the Mavericks, I guess you want to say, pick up somewhat of a solid lead in this game, because late in the fourth quarter, you're talking about a nice, with a three-point shot that bounces off the rim, goes up in the air, drops right back down. I just want to give Kyrie Irving so much credit, because again, I guess you want to say similar to that mindset of saying, we saw what happened in game 4. The Dallas Mavericks had a nice solid lead, solid advantage in that game, but somehow let it slip away. Kyrie Irving was a big part in helping the Dallas Mavericks lock down this series last night, and I want to give him a lot of credit, because one thing he was brought here for is for the Mavericks to have some playoff success. You saw lots of national pundits. They're giving the Kyrie Irving, the Luka Doncic, the combination, especially going into the offseason. This thing can't work. We saw how it fell apart last season. The Dallas Mavericks didn't even make a play-in. And again, obviously, the discourse comes around where the Mavericks trying to tank, or the Mavericks trying to just figure out how to way to keep that their draft pick, which ends up paying major dividends on a guy like Derek Lively. But just having that veteran presence from Kyrie Irving, and just knowing that it was time to take over and just instill himself in the game plan, it was just great to see. The list goes on. Obviously, we can start with Luka Doncic. 29-point triple-double. 29 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists in about 45 minutes. An efficient game from him. We're talking about 9 of 15 on field goals. I believe knocked down, 4 threes, I believe it was. You're looking at a guy like Luka Doncic. The injuries I've talked about a little bit. We're talking about the bang-ups, the knee, the back, the teeth. Things that he kind of been nagging injuries, and especially going back to the first round against the Los Angeles Clippers. The number one thing you're going to see, and then it comes out the reports, Luka Doncic is dealing with about 2-3 hours of therapy every single day just to be able to get himself to be active. That takes a lot from a leadership standpoint and just from a competitive standpoint. Luka Doncic deserves so much credit, just battling, just fighting, again, against a very capable team in the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't want to talk about their youth, because at the end of the day, we're still talking about a team that pulled down 57 wins this year. There's nothing that I guess you can blow your nose at, because everyone did not do it in the league. Now, we do know the Western Conference, especially this year, has been very tight, from the Dallas Mavericks with 50 wins as the 5th seed. You're talking about the Clippers right above that, and then you're looking at the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, who are still battling it out, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Dallas Mavericks had to come in here, and you needed your superstar player to be a superstar. Again, playing 45 minutes in a 48-minute regulation game, dealing with all the things he's dealt with, is just great. And Luka Doncic, to me now, bringing him to the Western Conference Finals, there's going to be so much up in the air, but that's having another couple days, a few days to rest, is going to be major for the Dallas Mavericks, because one thing is going to be for sure. You have to potentially see the situation now. This is where you start to look at matchups throughout the entire NBA. Now you start to ask yourself, where exactly do some of these, I guess you want to say, come our skill sets? Where are you finding some advantages, some disadvantages? But having a guy like Luka Doncic being out there to say your number one star player on the team, that is going to pay major dividends regardless of who the Dallas Mavericks' next opponent is in the Western Conference Finals. We could talk about contributions from everybody from off the bench. Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, just hustle plays. You're talking about guys, Daniel Gafford in the lineup. He did not have the perfect game, I'm sure, especially by the standard that he probably sets for himself. But that, I guess you want to say, that opened up a lot of opportunity for two guys. And I'm going to say we do not win this game without both of them. Derek Lively with 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I believe, 12 points, 15 rebounds, has a block. Just great defensive play. And I believe he had a team high plus. He was a plus 26 in team plus minus. That to me spoke wonders, because sometimes that gets lost in context. But one thing you saw, Derek Lively, whether it's giving more opportunities, second chances on the offensive boards, which some of the Dallas Mavericks, I believe, out-rebounded the Oklahoma City Thunder 47-31. That is nothing. I guess you want to say there's not much you can do, because what that does is open up so many opportunities. And if we do not have that advantage on the boards, I'm going to say the Dallas Mavericks find themselves with a 1-point win. We probably don't come out with this win. So like I said, Derek Lively was a big piece, especially dealing with everything he's done with personally. The rest of the team talks about pretty much how much they love him, how much they're riding for him. And you can see after the game, pretty much he kind of looks to the sky, whether he's talking to his mother, and just kind of and then he posts on Instagram after that, pretty much just letting it be known he's not done, but the thoughts and prayers are with him. Like I said, this is a young guy, 20 years old, dealing with the things he's dealt with personally, and being able to come out there and contribute in a playoff game, a basketball game, like I said, especially in the playoffs, and just the intensity and the seriousness of this game. Because the one thing the Dallas Mavericks did not want to do, like I said, Kyrie Irving spoke about in post-game, do you want to go back to Oklahoma City for a 7th game of this series? Now you don't have the crowd behind you. Now you're talking about a young team who may go in there with just nothing to lose, and they're going to come out guns a-blazing. The Dallas Mavericks did not give that opportunity. And then we could talk about a Derrick Jones Jr. 22 points last night. I talked about P.J. Washington have early foul trouble, and it knocked off the flow of the game, the momentum of the game, and you could see it very clearly. But Derrick Jones Jr., a couple just nice buckets, a turnaround 2-point mid-range jumper, falling to the ground late in the game. I believe puts the Mavericks up 115 to 110 late in the fourth, and that pretty much just opened up the domino effect for the Dallas Mavericks to be able to close this thing out. It was just great basketball. It was great team basketball. That's the number one way, probably the best way to describe it. It was just great team ball. You got role players. You have contributions from guys that are maybe your star players. Like I said, a Kyrie Irving knocking down 4 threes, ended up with 22 points himself. It was just a great all-around effort. And then going into the same fact, we could run back to P.J. Washington a little bit. When you're talking about P.J. Washington, ends up with 9 points, a couple big 3-point buckets. He was not able to get rolling. Again, dealing with early foul trouble. You don't have any flow of the game. You're not really being involved offensively, because when you get back in the game, you're now focused on putting some defensive pressure on these guys. And then now you're trying to figure out who exactly and just step in where we need them. P.J. Washington knocking down 2 big 3-pointers late in the fourth, and especially knocking down key 2 free throws, the key late game 2 free throws to essentially win the game for the Dallas Mavericks. We're talking about the play. Of course, you can get into the conversation. Was it a foul? Was it not a foul? And based on the rule, it was blatantly a foul. We see P.J. Washington, Luka Doncic whips the ball out to P.J. Washington late in the game. A couple seconds left on the clock. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comes out to close out and try to contest the shot. P.J. Washington doesn't lose the ball. Those big hands that he has, the ball does not come loose, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comes down on his arm, opening up the ability for PJ to get 3 free throws, knocking down the first 2 to give us the 117 to 116 lead, and then intentionally missing the wherewithal, the mindset to intentionally miss that 3rd free throw, again not allowing the Oklahoma City Thunder to get set in any way, shape, or form, and have to launch a full court shot, last second heave, I will say, that came up short, and the Dallas Mavericks move on to the Western Conference Finals. This was team ball, I guess you want to say, to the highest level. And the Dallas Mavericks, they can continue their momentum, continue to just lock in key adjustments. To me, it's all about the details, because one thing I will give some flack for yesterday was the turnovers, the unnecessary turnovers. I believe Luka Doncic himself, we don't want to rain on the parade, but 7 turnovers, obviously dealing with some injuries. This is the postseason. It's just about winning games. But these are some things that you're going to have to continue to I guess I want to say, just be aware of, and make sure you're not taking these bad habits into the next round. But I believe the team overall had 18 turnovers, so it wasn't just Luka Doncic by himself. There were just some things we're going to have to clean up, but just being able to see the defensive effort and seeing guys be able to stay engaged and make plays when they were called for is going to be something the Dallas Mavericks can hang their hat on. And lots of credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're still talking about, again, a young team. I believe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is sitting at 25 years old. Yesterday ended up with 36 points, 8 assists. Then all of a sudden you're looking at a guy like Jalen Williams with 22 points, almost a triple-double, 8 and 9. And look at Chet Holmgren, I believe 21 points. A young team that's very talented, and they have a bright future if things can continue to just stay on the right track. We're talking about health-wise and things like that. We always know it's up in the air. Teams will always be back in quotations, but sometimes inopportune things, unfortunate things happen to these teams. So you want to take advantage of every opportunity, and the Dallas Mavericks did not let this one slip away. I appreciate these guys for just the fire and the fight that they showed, and again, throwing in guys like a Derrick Jones Jr., a P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, your Derek Lively, who I'm going to say was definitely one of the MVPs in the win last night, throwing in obviously Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Jaden Hardy, who I talked about a little bit. And I said, to me personally, this is just going to be major for a guy like Jaden Hardy to be able to get these reps and these important game reps, I'm going to say, going forward to potentially. I feel like this is going to be a guy that can take over that sixth-man role. They come in and you be your number one ball handler off the bench. Come in to be a guy that can control an offense on his own. Jaden Hardy has a bright future alongside with some of these other young guys on his team, and I'm excited to see what is next. But we're going to focus on the Western Conference Finals. I believe the Dallas Mavericks do not play until Wednesday, so there's more time for this team to get as healthy as they can be. Just a little bit more rest for Luka Doncic, be able to get a little bit more rehab, and just some of the other guys, just to be able to stay engaged, look at film. Of course, last night was just a night to enjoy the win, and the next couple days is now where you start to ramp up for the game plan against whoever you'll face. But the Dallas Mavericks took down the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder to win the series 4-2 in 6 games, with the final score of Dallas Mavericks 117, Oklahoma City Thunder 116. The game tonight is going to be very important. The Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Denver Nuggets. We're going to see who the Dallas Mavericks are going to be facing off in the upcoming round. So it's going to be exciting basketball still ahead for the Dallas Mavericks and the entire fan base. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know down below who you felt was the MVP of the night. It can be somebody that was off the bench. It can be a star player, whoever it was. Let me know what you and also what you think about the team going forward. Do you really? Is there anybody that you want to actually focus on a little bit more? Are you more cautious of playing a team like the Denver Nuggets? Again, this is talking about the defending champions. Are you ready to play a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves? We know the length that they have and the player that they, again, the star player in the, I guess you want to say on the rise, in an Anthony Edwards. The Dallas Mavericks, again, we just have some things to continue to play for. Let me know down below in the comment section how you feel about the game last night and just what's to come in the future. I support you guys. I appreciate all the support. And as always, go Mavs and enjoy the rest of your day.